to Apothecary After Dark.
All right. Welcome to Amityville Apothecary's Apothecary After Dark podcast. I'm Danielle. This is Dina.
Hey. We're so excited to come to you today.
We have a great topic because we asked our audience what they would like to hear from us. So we're actually going to start off by reading what somebody wrote because it's totally relatable.
Yeah.
So this is going to tee it up.
Okay, so here it goes. I'm interested in knowing what makes a witch a witch. I watch videos of TikTok and many of the people identify as witches and speak to us like we all are too. I don't consider myself a witch. I've been into crystals for a few years. I've been learning tarot for over a year. I'm not psychic, not neurospicy, nor do I have strong intuition. I do rituals, but they are more simplistic and positive. Protection, full moon, and new moon. I don't want to overstep by calling myself a witch when I'm not. Anyway, I thought it might make good content for the podcast. I'm probably not the only one that feels that way. Thank you, Kay. On Instagram, A Classy Broad. Shout out to you for this amazing question.
I love that question because as I was listening to Dina read it, I go, you know what's so interesting? I actually felt the exact same way. I have never felt comfortable, and I don't necessarily consider myself a witch. That term just never resonates with me. I'm highly spiritual. I have had different awakenings and dark nights of the soul and evolutions and interests, but I've always identified myself more with the nature lover and more with shamanism and like magic and astrology, but a witch just never sat right with me, even though I'm doing a lot of the same practices that would constitute witchy things.
I mean, I consider her a witch.
It's just one of those terms. So, everybody has their own flavor, their own term, and that's what I think we cater to beautifully. That you can say, like, I'm more shamanistic, I'm more into Wicca, I'm more into paganism, I'm more into witchiness, I'm more into like sacred geometry and energy, and all of those things are great and encompassed in the grand scheme of metaphysics, or that which we don't have solid understanding of, but a belief and a faith that there is something greater than ourselves. And how do we work with those energies, and how do we work with nature, and how do we work with herbs, and how do we work with the planets? And I think all of that is encompassed in the theme and the topic. And then we serve almost as like tour guides in your journey of interests in evolution.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that, I think a lot of us, first of all, have generational trauma around the word witch. Even if we're taking away historical experiences like inquisitions and witch trials and all of that, witch, because we're Generation X, witch wasn't a term that was used in a good way. Right. So, and oftentimes witches were portrayed as not being so good looking, and they were on the margins of society. So I think a lot of us...
My original exposure when we were young children was Snow White.
Right. Oh,
with
God.
that witch. But that was our first early exposure to what a witch is. And maybe that's part of the...
So I do think that that's part of it. I think then, too, I'm a little bit more comfortable with the term witch because I see it from the perspective of reclaiming, especially as a woman, that wildness of not fitting in to what society, the expectations of societal roles is putting on me. That doesn't mean that I don't fulfill very traditional roles of wife and mother, because I do those things, but it also means that I live my life on my terms, and that's how I use the term witch. But I also use it magically as well.
Right.
And so a lot of, living close to nature, in tune and in harmony with the astrology and using tarot and the metaphysics, to me, that's witchy and that makes you a witch. But I also think that witch for us also has a connotation of a religion, because Wicca really started to build up steam in the 70s was when we were being born. I just outed our age.
It's fine. It's okay.
That's when the first how-to be a witch were published en masse. And so witch really was Wiccan and was really structured.
Yeah. So in terms of like formal magic, that's not my vibe. I have the books. I am not one to say like I'm going to pull a spell and follow that. That's just not how I choose to practice. And that's not wrong and that's not right. It's just personalized to me. Like, I remember being a young child and I was always extraordinarily sensitive to energy. So if I found myself in a school situation or a mall, I would get very overwhelmed energetically and I would feel the energy of other people, and I didn't know if it was my energy, if it was other people's energy. I would get very overwhelmed. So I did not like those types of group settings because I am hypersensitive to other people's energy. Now I have the knowledge to understand that clairsentience is part of my strongest gifts. But until you have the understanding of how to work with energy and identify what's my energy versus others, I'm not taking it on. I'm just identifying it and creating boundaries. And then also claircognizance is one of my strong ones. So I had this knowingness about things that went beyond my normal realm of knowingness. So I believe with the extra senses, the extrasensory perceptions that people have, there's a whole series. There's clairvoyance, which is heightened vision. There's clairaudience, which is hearing, and that can manifest in music or hearing voices.
There's clear smelling, which you never remember what it is.
I never remember the name, and even taste.
Yes.
So there's all different clairs, and I think certain people are born with certain senses that are heightened, and it's understanding how to harness that and understand that it's like a gift that you're born with. Not everybody has that sensitivity, because it used to overwhelm me. It would exhaust me. So was I witchy? I don't know. I definitely felt different because other people weren't experiencing that to my knowledge. So I think that we all have innate, like, I have very strong intuition, and I would be told to like not trust that. So for a while, I would just shut that down and not trust that. But now, as a more mature adult, I know how to harness that and know that and trust my gut, because those are all signs. And that's all like witchiness. They're all special powers that are innate to me, which are different from how you receive. You receive messages in a very different way than me.
Yeah. My messages, my most recent messages have really been coming in crazy dreams, which it's so funny because I'm not going to say exactly what the dream was, but it really confirmed something that was happening internally in the shop. And, Samantha, our resident psychic and tarot reader, was like, whoa, I don't like this. And it's so funny because a lot of times I'm moving so fast that I don't even pay attention to it. And I've had these conversations before with Dr. Michael Lennox, the dream interpreter, that the dreams have a different sense to them when they're more, prophetic or giving me some type of information than just my regular weird, my brain sort of processing what happened during the daydream. I also, can see spirits sometimes every once in a while. I pick up very specific things about people when I attune to their energy, which do not walk into the shop and say what are you getting from me? Because I am not throwing my energy against you without being invited. That is very rude. Yes. I don't like when people do it to me, when psychics that I don't know come into the shop and start talking to me about things. I'm like, not invited.
Correct. Don't do that. That's bad etiquette.
It is bad etiquette. I'm not I wouldn't say hey, could I see what your underwear is? That's looking at it is. It's it's violative, not cool. So I'm not going to do that. And like you said, it can be. It does take energy to do that with people.
Right.
I've always because I had, and I think a lot of what we consider witchy or how we consider ourselves to be a witch also has a lot to do with like how we grew up. And I was really like, I'm my parents' only child, and I was the only grandchild for like 12 years. So I spent a lot of time in my imagination and in the woods, like doing things now, like making brooms and besoms. Yeah. Hello, so witchy. That I didn't realize because I was just bored and we didn't have access to 24-hour, 365 cable or children's programming.
Right.
And adults didn't play with kids.
Well, my parents would say, like, go get out of the house. I'll see you around dinner time. So I would get on my bike and I would go. But one of my favorite places was to climb the pine tree right next to the house that was taller than my roof line. And I would climb the branches, and there was like this one favorite spot where I would perch myself and nobody in the outer world could see me, but I had a bird's eye view of everything.
Awesome.
And I would spend like endless time up there, and I'd be making like little mud puddle spells and whatever, and like I would play with the worms and the dirt and everything, and like that's very witchy and earthy and stuff, but I would find nature so restorative.
Yeah.
So when I was with the crowds, it would drain me and overwhelm me, and then when I was in nature, it would restore me. So my body naturally responded with that. I remember when all the kids would get the nameplates, the gold nameplates, I said to my parents, like, I would like an Egyptian cartouche. And they were like, what is that? I'm like, it's got these awesome Egyptian hieroglyphics. And like, they were like, all right, weirdo. And I was like, but I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
I had no reason. I don't know. And then I've done past life regressions, and I've had significant past lives in ancient Egypt, working as a servant under the pharaoh, and like it was as if I was there because I had a remembering of the experience.
Do you remember when I was doing my first crystal healing certification and you came to my house? We just reconnected about like our practice. You weren't fully through your Reiki training yet, and you, I think, had just done the regression where you had the past life in Egypt, and you laid down on my table, and I was putting crystals on Danielle, and I don't remember if I put lapis on her third eye or her throat, and I literally said, have you had past lives in Egypt? And she's like, how did you know that?
And it's so weird because it was such a poignant and strong memory as I went through the regression. It was a visitation, and I looked at my clothing and I relived the experience as if I was observing it also. I didn't like that experience because I actually came down with it an illness, and I was banished and I was just sent away to die. And I was like, wow, I really did not like that lifetime. But like there's hints in this lifetime, like there were people in that experience that are in my current lifetime.
Yeah.
Because energetically, I identified them. There's a knowingness. You ever meet somebody and you're like, there's a knowingness or a familiarity. We've met before, even though you've never met them before. It's just that knowledge, that soul-to-soul connection. So, I mean, I think that there are things that we can't possibly understand, but there are clues, especially when you're young, that you gravitate towards. So I was always interested in astrology. I got a tarot card very early, and people were like, what is that?
Yeah,
what are you
same.
doing? And like, people would throw shade, and they'd be like, that's weird. You know, I dressed weird. I looked weird. I did weird things. My interest, but like, I also have a very fierce personality that if people would try to shun me, I'd be like, so yeah, what are you going to do about it? And I would like fight back. Whereas a lot of people would just shrink into their shell and conform to how I should look, or I should behave, or I should appear. And I think that happens in society. Nowadays, there's more understanding of people's creativity and like their interests.
There's more allowance for people to present themselves in ways that are comfortable to them versus like forcing people to conform. So now there's a lot more allowance for people to take their human avatar and present it in a way. It's, I remember being young, and before this, we're talking to Mark, who was like, don't bring up my name, because I'm hiding behind the camera. We were talking about the first time I got, Acid House, which was in 1993. It was a mixtape that I bought on the streets of London. And at that time, I remember I bought like a bleach kit and bleached a piece of my hair and got manic panic, and I had Doc Martens, and it was just such like a fun time. But I remember buying all this stuff in London because it wasn't easily accessible in the States yet, and they had a whole different scene over there.
Yeah.
And now you can first of all, you could go on the internet and get whatever you want.
Right.
But, back in the olden days, we had to, create it, or
The tolerance was not
there was no tolerance.
as open. We would catch heat for that type of creativity or expression.
I remember
we were
when I went
younger.
to college and I opened the door because it was parents' weekend our freshman year, and my dad came in and I had a full undercut. My whole underneath of my hair was gone, and a ponytail, and it might have been fantasy colors, which was hard to do in the early 90s. It wasn't like now where you can go to CVS and get like peacock blue hair dye.
In middle school, I shaved
Yeah.
off the left side of my hair. I had a one-eyed Jack. It was like this. Like, my hair was like this. And that was like, I got weird looks. So it was like,
I know.
It was not cute.
And now
Actually,
it's
it was
like,
not a good look.
listen, I'm still growing out that undercut from COVID. I got
remember you had
nervous.
that.
It's fine. I think though, however you want to define your practice, you have the permission to do so. So even though Danielle does things that are considered witchy and just like our, writer inner, I don't know what's that term, feels that they do witchy things, they don't feel comfortable considering themselves a witch, you don't have to. Or if you want to, then consider yourself a witch. Like, you have permission to use the terms that feel comfortable to you, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
And I think it's so interesting. Like, embrace who you are. And like, I think that is a gift of today's day and age, that you can truly be whoever you are. Like, when we were growing up, people were still very closeted. And my heart bleeds for my friends that were actually like homosexual and they couldn't be themselves.
No, you couldn't.
Like, it just kills me.
Be out there. You couldn't be who you were. You had to be who you were told to be or expected to be. And the world wasn't safe.
It wasn't
for
safe.
people that
it
were
wasn't
different.
safe. And meanwhile, now I think about how beautiful and colorful, like even our community here in the shop are. It's all walks. It's like, I have friends that are every walk of sexuality, of expression, who are drag queens, who are straight conservative, like female, like who are yoga spiritualists, who are, just nature lovers, like little fairies. And
So many
it's
different
all
people.
beautiful, because what a celebration of everything culminating and coming together. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, and look, you have this human experience.
Yeah.
And you get to play in this human experience. And just because you are presenting yourself in one way now, or like to dress in one way now, or like to listen to music that's one style now, doesn't mean that you have to live out the rest of your life that way.
Yeah.
It's fun to experiment and play and see where you feel comfortable and where you maybe like something or something needed to change. Like,
I'm thinking about all your different hairstyles
oh my
from
God,
the time
if
that we
you've
opened
been
up the
watching
shop.
us for the past 5.5 years,
Dina had dreads that she
literally
imported
looked like
from
a different person.
From Russia. Remember your dread situation?
I had Russian locks that were
You
made
had
out
that?
of wool. I had those for a while.
I was red. I was black hair. I was purple hair. You were blonde hair.
blonde,
you were curly
red,
hair.
curly, green, turquoise, all the things.
Sometimes I dress more witchy. I used to dress corporate. There's no right. Just be who you want to be. If you
in
want to,
the moment.
you
Be
know,
who you want to
like-
be in the moment.
just have fun. Be authentic and like try. Don't be afraid to try new things. And that's the thing with all of this. That's why we have this whole bookstore, because you can try new things. If you're like, I want to learn about runes, like try it. Try it. It's an exploration. Try it on. See how it feels. If it feels natural, cool. Do more of it. If not, you tried something new.
else. Right.
It's great. I love that.
It's good to experiment and again play. I just, I say that, my daughter is graduating high school this year, and I always say, like, just when you get to college, take some classes.
Yeah.
And see what you like and see who inspires you, what professors, what people, what groups of people, and follow what we always say, the breadcrumbs that the universe leaves for you that are make you happy, make you feel better. And you know that feeling when you're feeling good and like you're like fired up and energized instead of just like, do I have to do this? Like chase the experience of what feels good and natural and inspiring to you. And don't let somebody else tell you it's wrong. You know, I have this exercise that I do with people. When I do coaching, which I don't consider myself life coaching, I'm not doing that, so don't ask me.
No, we despise that.
I'm going to give you some free life coaching right now, and this is your first assignment. If I was doing that, this is what I would have you do. It's called the Wave a Magic Wand exercise. And if you could wave a magic wand over your life, what would your life look like? Now, some basic parameters apply. We still operate under capitalism. No, you cannot win the lottery. Yes, you have to work. Yes, you still have to pay bills and you still have to eat food and do all the things that we have to do in 2024.
Yes.
But who would you hang out with? What would you look like? If you knew that you wouldn't be judged and you wouldn't care how people felt about you or looked at you, what would you dress like? What would your hair look like? Where would you go? What would you do? What would you listen to? Who would you hang out with? What type of job would you have if you had the permission to switch jobs right now? What would that job be? And you need to be honest and vulnerable with yourself. Maybe journal it.
Yes. I was going to say it's a great journal exercise.
Yeah, it's a great journal exercise. But be honest with yourself, because I say this in every podcast episode, but success is a self-awareness game. That's quoting Gary Vee.
Yes.
And you cannot be successful and happy and embodied if you're not honest with yourself as to who you want to be.
I'm going to add on that because something that has guided me time and time again, and I have a stellium in the 8th house, which represents death and rebirth and death and rebirth and death and rebirth. You are never too old to make a change.
Yes.
You are never stuck in a situation. You can always make a change. And that is you can be 80, you can be 75, you can be 20. It doesn't matter. Do this envisioning and then evaluate. Are you living in alignment with that? What are some changes that you can
what
incorporate?
Small steps can I make right now? I don't want to wear twin sweater sets anymore. I don't want to wear slacks.
No more loft for me.
Right, exactly. So then change it. And who cares if you get weird looks?
It's all good.
My mother hates my tattoos so much. And my father also hates them, although my brother is more heavily tattooed than I am. But I guess it's more societally acceptable for him to be heavily tattooed. I don't care. And I have gotten to the point where I've said to my mother, like, you don't have to like my tattoos. They're not for you. They're for me.
Yeah.
They're not for you. They're not on your body. They're for me. They're on my body. I didn't ask you. You're allowed to have your opinion, but that's the thing about your happiness being about your self-awareness.
Yeah.
I know that they're for me, and I know she doesn't like them, and it doesn't hurt my feelings.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it's
because
fine.
she doesn't have to get any.
No. So we loved this question so much.
Yeah.
So reach out to us. All the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Amityville Apothecary, or YouTube channel. Reach out to us. What do you want us to tackle next? We love your questions.
Yeah.
They're so much fun. And
subscribe, like us, share this with your friends, come back frequently. We're always talking about new things. And if you're in the neighborhood, come visit us. If you're not in the neighborhood, plan a trip to come visit us.
For sure.
So, we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening to us today. We look forward to connecting with you again soon. So be sure to come back for the next episode.
And make sure to follow us on social media. It's the fastest way you can get in touch with us at Amityville Apothecary, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And of course, like, subscribe to this podcast. We are eternally grateful for your support.